Welcome back. Today I'd like to analyze a few recent daily games that I played against some of you, my subscribers. Lately I've had several of these going on all at once, and a few of them wrapped up recently, and I'm pretty sure that I can learn something from some of these. But as always, I haven't looked through these games since they completed, so I could be surprised. That's the way that these videos go. So let's go ahead and take a look at the first game. This game was against a person that I've played against quite often, Vedantbaj. And I had the game review running in the background while I was doing the intro, and I thought I had lost this game, so I'm surprised that it says I played with a greater accuracy than my opponent, and that I was ahead at the end. Well, as I said during the intro, I'm sometimes surprised by how these games go, so let's look through here and see if we can find a place that we can learn from something. It looks like, according to this graph, that my opponent was never ahead. Well, we might be surprised by this one right off the bat, but again, we will try to learn something. My opponent played e4, and I played the correspondence. We got the, I think that's the classical variation. No, this is the, oh, right. This isn't the correspondence according to the opening book on chess.com. This is the queen's pawn opening Shigorin variation. I'm pretty sure that this is the correspondence. All right, this is another one of those moments that makes me think that I might have lost my mind, and if that's the case, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm kidding. Yeah, don't tell me that. Just, call a professional or something. Okay, it was the correspondence until they played knight to c3. All right. And I'm pretty sure that in every case, I have seen this a lot, that I go ahead and take this pawn. It does look like that's my best move, so I did. They took back. When that happens, I almost always bring this bishop out. Is that my best move? Yes. Okay. Usually my opponent drops this knight back, attacking my bishop, and I drop it back here. But this time my opponent came into knight g5 instead of knight g3, which I don't know if it's the first time I've seen that, but I'm pretty sure in that case it's not attacking anything. I can just leave this here. The engine says I should have played e6 here, but knight to f6 is fine, and so is h6. Okay, I played h6, telling that knight, to go back someplace else, one of those two squares over here on the third rank. It does say those are two of the top three moves there, but g4 is also a move. According to the move list, my opponent's next move was a mistake. They just attacked and captured my f7 pawn. Now, of course, during the game, neither one of us is looking at an engine, so I don't know if this is a good move or not. I do know that the Caro-Kann has a few traps, and there are videos on YouTube about them. And I also know that a lot of e4 players have looked at those videos. And so sometimes I haven't looked at them. So sometimes when I'm playing the Caro-Kann defense, and they do something startling like this, I wonder, is this one of those traps? If I take this, are they going to then put the queen here? And then I'm going to, I can't go back, so I'm going to have to go forward. And then pretty soon I'm in checkmate in like 11 moves or something. So that's what I started to wonder here. I definitely remember having that feeling, but I'm not in check. Is the first thing, but I am being forked here on the these two pieces. So if I move my queen out of this fork somehow, they're going to get my rook for the knight. But if I take it, then my king's exposed and I can't castle anymore. So I remember having trouble deciding what to do here, and I did know that if I did capture, that's going to open up the queen to this check. This diagonal to the queen check. It does look like there was no other choice really other than to take with the king. So I'm glad I did decide that. And then instead of checking with the queen, which I realized after I moved here, if they checked with the queen, I could have blocked with the bishop, or I suppose with the pawn. My opponent surprised me by checking over here with the bishop on c4. Now again, here there are a couple of options. One is to block with this light squared bishop, which I've already moved out. I try not to move pieces multiple times in the opening. What if I do block with that? Well, then they can push this pawn forward. Well, I could take the pawn. Well, then they could take it, and their queen's back there defending that. But then I guess my queen would be defending that square too. But it does say that my best move was to block with e6. Okay, so that is what I played, and it says that was a great move. All right. My opponent has a bunch of choices here that keep us all about 1.1, minus 1.1, minus 1.2. They did play the one that's listed as best, which is knight to f3. Again, I wasn't sure if they were about to bring the queen out, but I do know that from here, this knight can check me a couple of different ways. Maybe not on g5 because of my pawn. But what about e5? I don't have anything guarding that square. So a couple of different ways that I could defend the e5 square. I could bring this bishop out, which I would like to develop some pieces at this point, especially these two, because I'd like to get my king back in there and get this rook out. But I did think that if I did put this bishop here, it might check there anyway. And then when I captured, they'd take back with the pawn, but then I guess I could take their queen. I don't know. It does say bishop to d6 is just as good as what I played. I decided to defend that square with my knight. They're about equal. Okay, so I did okay there. And Stockfish thinks my opponent should castle at this point. They have cleared out the 2 pieces that are in the way of castling, so that's a good idea. It's always a good idea to castle, I suppose, unless, the opponent already has some attack lined up on those pawns, really close, ready to go. And in this case, I don't. I'm on the run. So castling would be a good idea for my opponent. Getting the other bishop out would be a good idea for my opponent. Developing the queen would be a good idea for my opponent. But they did what I thought they were going to do, but I thought I had stopped it by putting my knight here on d7. They went ahead and checked on e5 with the knight. That turns out to be a mistake because I can take with my knight. The reason that I chose the knight instead of the bishop for that is that once the knight's out of the way, my queen's protected back here. So if there, does turn out to be a queen trade, I think it'll be okay. And it is definitely my best move to take the knight. Okay. And it's their best move to take my knight with their pawn, but instead they checked with the queen. Now, I saw a big jump. I'm surprised that this says that's inaccurate because it was -2 if they took back with the pawn here. -2.7, and now it's -6. That's a blunder. That's not inaccurate. Yeah, that's a blunder, and I can just block that with the pawn, but not the bishop, right? It would definitely be worse to block with the bishop. Okay. I think the reason that I didn't block with the bishop is because then they can take the knight with the queen. But if I block with the pawn, wait, they can still take the knight though. Oh, but they wouldn't because the pawn would be attacking the queen. If I blocked here, they could take the knight with the queen and the queen is safe for a moment. Okay, so that's why it's better to block with the pawn. All right, I did that. This pawn is triply defended here, so I wasn't worried about that one. This pawn is also triply defended, so I wasn't worried about that. The bishop is well defended. The only thing that's not defended is the knight, but they could have taken that last turn. Okay, so I'm out of check. They need to go away with their queen, but very close in evaluation is to go ahead and check with the bishop there. Now, I'm surprised that those moves were so close in evaluation. Why is that? Oh, okay. I think I know why. Because they're going to lose the bishop anyway, since they didn't take my knight when they should have. Now, if they just get their queen, if they get their queen out of danger to e2, which is their best move, then I'll get their, oh no, it wouldn't be free. They would take back. So why is it just as good? Oh, it's not quite as good now. They were pretty close earlier, but now it's a full point difference. But yeah, I don't know why it's a good idea for them to give up the bishop for the pawn. Okay, but my opponent did that, and I'm supposed to take back with the king. Would actually be better than taking back with the bishop. Again, I'm not sure why. It's not about protecting the knight because again, the knight is going to fall. Okay, so I took back with my bishop. Maybe the reason I thought that is because if they took back here, I would be blocking the pawn. No, because now they can take that. That gives the queen a way out. And that is their best move, to take there with their queen. And then that's what they did. Now they're aimed at my rook. I had no idea I was up -5 here. No idea at all. I know I'm up 4 points of material. I think you can see that on the board there. Oh, and I just realized that this isn't cropped as well as I would like it to be. Let me fix that really quick. Sorry about that. I like to fill as much of the screen with the board as I can. But again, I was really wondering if this wasn't some long involved trap that my opponent had studied, because it looks like they're going to win my rook now. And then that 4 points of material I'm up, that will have wafted away like smoke. Now, Stockfish says I can block the queen's path to the rook by putting my knight on f6. I can play bishop to c4, that's my second best move. I don't understand that. It looks like then they would just get my rook. What would bishop to c4 do? I have no idea what bishop to c4 would do. And it says they would not take my queen if I played bishop to c4. I mean, they would not take my rook. I don't know why. Is that because I could trap them? No, because then they could just get out this way. I could also play bishop to g7. And why didn't I play that? Yeah, my next move is a blunder, and I cannot explain why I did not pick one of these two ways to block the queen's path to the rook. I played instead there, which gives up the rook, and it is their best move to take it, and they did. And I'm still ahead. Wow. Okay, yeah, I resigned here because I thought that I was lost. And I guess that's another example of I should have followed my own advice, which is almost never resign. At my level, there's almost never a reason to. For one thing, a lot of us are really bad at evaluating these positions. I know I am. In this case, I thought I was lost because not only had they completely ruined my, castling rights, they've messed up my pawn structure, completely opened up my king. There's no pawns on any of these files. They've gotten in here and it doesn't look like I can do much about it. The engine says my best move is to check, but they can block with the pawn, they can block with the bishop, and then what? Oh, it says I should go over here. I guess here in a second, I'm supposed to be trying to trap their queen or something? No, because that rook over there's undefended. And my opponent can still castle, by the way. Either side, if they decide to get this bishop out at some point. But yeah, apparently I should not have resigned, but I know that, again, what I mentioned earlier about there being a bunch of Caro-Kann traps, and I thought maybe I had fallen into one of them. My opponent clearly was really confident coming in with these attacks with the queen and the bishop and the knight, just jumping into the middle and breaking open everything. I need to learn how to fend off those attacks, and apparently I was doing a good job until that last move. I had been getting steadily further and further ahead. All I had to do here was play knight to f6 or bishop to g7, and I would have been up -5 and up 4 points of material. So yeah, I don't know what caused me to not play one of those moves, but I do know that here after this, I thought I was lost and I resigned. So yeah, bad idea for me. I think, if anything, the lesson I'm going to take from this is not to resign, especially in an unrated daily game against one of my subscribers. If they were in fact winning, I should probably resolve personally to just go ahead and let my opponent checkmate me if they can. So thank you once again, vedantbaj, for this game, and I wish I could have played better in this one, or at least played it out. The next subscriber game that I'm going to look at today was against PMA68, and again, the game review was running in the background while I was doing my intro. I just set all those to run the game review before I recorded the intro. This one looks like we both did very well, keeping it very close until somewhere near the end when I made a huge blunder here. Okay, if I'm not mistaken, it's been a couple of days since this one ended. I don't remember how it went, but it looks like I had the white pieces. Let's just go. I'm going to switch over to the analysis tab. Okay, my opponent played the Sicilian, and I did what I have been doing, which is playing knight to c3, hoping for an f4 here in a second. And I think maybe my opponent had seen the Gotham course where you play a6, or maybe I think there's a Gotham chess video about playing a6 here in the Sicilian. I don't remember because I don't play the Sicilian and I haven't paid a lot of attention to it. I assume that one of the things there is to keep this bishop from coming out to b5, so it can't pin that knight at some point when that knight comes out. And I guess the other reason is because you get a really quick b5 and c4 push, I think. That's what I can remember about the a6 idea. Well, and for the life of me, I can't remember now why I didn't play f4, which is what I have been playing against the Sicilian, but f4 is not listed here, and neither is what I played. It says knight to f3 would be best, but I played d4. It says that's excellent, but we're down to even now, whereas I had an advantage before. They are supposed to take, and I'm supposed to take back. Okay, I did. And then they played knight to c6, so I have to do something with the queen. d3, e3, or d2 are all fine. Okay, I did play one of those. And again, I think I've mentioned this in the past. I don't like bringing my queen out early, but in that case, they took the pawn, so that's what you have to do, I think. Especially, I didn't have the knight out on f3 yet. My opponent played one of their better moves. And again, I should play knight to f3 here. I think my idea at this point was to possibly try to castle long, and I wanted to get this bishop out, but if I put it there, it's not really going anywhere, so I decided to go this way with it, but that's an inaccuracy if my opponent plays e5. Well, they did play e5. Well, I waited a little bit. The engine had a hard time deciding what the best move was there. It is saying now that I've moved that pawn, might as well get this bishop out. But it says I can also just go ahead and put it here, which I don't know why I would since I already moved that pawn. Or get this bishop out, or knight to f3 again, or a3. Well, inexplicably, I did not play bishop to b2 after pushing forward the b pawn. I put that bishop there. No, I cannot explain that, especially since this pawn is just waiting to attack it. It's not one of the, well, again, Stockfish having trouble deciding yet. It is one of their best moves to play b5, but they played their absolute best move, which is knight to d4. It's anchored in here by this pawn, but I'm not sure what it's, it's going for that, isn't it? Okay, it's going for the fork. And because of where my queen is, that would be a royal fork. So that's why that was their best move. And my best defense against it is to bring this bishop back to d3 to defend that pawn. I did play that. Oh, wow. I'm honestly surprised I saw that. It seems like I'm the kind of person that would have played queen to d3 right there. But I had, I've already moved this piece once. I've already moved this piece twice. Now I had to, so now I've moved both of those pieces twice, which I don't like. My opponent again played their absolute best move, which is to pin that knight to the king. So I should probably get this knight out and castle. No, it's my best move to play bishop to d2 to block that pin. I did not play that. I finally played the move that I should have played like 3 turns ago, which is to go here, but that's a mistake because of queen to c7. That's why that's a mistake. Oh, because it adds another attacker here, I guess. And then I would have to bring the queen back to help defend the knight. Oh, wow. Okay, well, I'm glad my opponent didn't see that. They missed it and played d6 instead. I get d6. It lets out this bishop someplace. I'm not sure exactly where they were going to put it, but I understand it. I doubt that I was worried about the queen attacking my knight, but I did want an extra defender on it. And I thought if I put my knight on e2, maybe it would encourage this knight to go away. Plus, I can castle here in a second. One of my opponent's better moves was to drop that back to, I guess, defend the knight some more. Oh, and also a discovery. They're still aiming for this, which would be a check, but I wouldn't be able to take it because of the discovery. So I need to get my queen out of danger. It's best to go to d2. Is that what I played? Okay, I feel good about that. And now their best move is just to take here. Really? Okay, I'm a little surprised by that, but it says their best move is to take on e2, but my opponent played one of their other good moves, which was to develop their light squared bishop. It's got a nice little, hideout here behind these two pawns peeking out, but it can't go very far in any of those directions. I guess that's the only square it could go to from there right now. But it is, guarding those squares. Okay. It is my best move to castle. I did my opponent's best move castling. Okay, so we're very close to even. I think we've both played very well, even though there's been a couple of moves that it said it was inaccurate or a mistake. We stayed between +1 and -1. Now, I don't know if this is a good time or not to point out that this opponent, despite being rated lower than me in daily rating, is rated far higher than me in rapid and I believe some other time controls. And I knew that going in. That's one reason that I play these daily games unrated against you guys. Some of you are rated a lot lower than me. Some of you are rated a lot higher than me. I think it just makes it more sporting if we play these unrated. After my opponent castled, I had no idea what to do. I did see that there was a bishop pointed along this way, and I know I have a pawn in the way, but I thought if I don't know what else to do and I like where all my other pieces are, maybe just move the king over. That does not appear in my list of top 5 moves here. I did consider knight to d5, which it says is my best move. However, my opponent has 2 pieces guarding that square, so I thought if I went in there, it says they wouldn't. It says they wouldn't, but I thought that they would. I thought that they would take, and if I took back with the pawn, they would take with the bishop. And then they would have a centralized bishop, which is a little bit more powerful than where it was before. I probably considered taking this knight, which it says is my second best move, but then they would take with the bishop. See, if they took with the pawn after I took with the knight, then I could just, hop this knight out of the way of that pawn. But if I took the knight and they took with the bishop, then I couldn't hop the knight out of the way because that would be undefended. I guess I could have hopped it out of the way over there. Oh, it says I would go to d1 with it. I probably wouldn't have thought of that. Or it says going out here now would be okay. Lots of decent moves that it suggests instead of what I played. Okay, but it was not counted as inaccurate, but it should have been because we're at zeros here. That's within a hair's breadth of 0, right? And once I play this, we're suddenly at 0.5. That should have been counted as an inaccuracy, not excellent, because of how much it changed. Now, again, they're supposed to take on e2, but they did play one of their top moves, which is to get the rook on this semi-open file. And it does add another attacker to, this clump of pieces that I have here. Again, I'm supposed to play knight to d5 or f3. Oh, now that I've got my king out of the way, it says I can move my f-pawn. Well, I did want to move my f-pawn. I didn't know I should just move it a little bit, so I moved it a lot. That actually improved the evaluation despite it saying it wasn't good or excellent. Really? Back up. Oh, really? Now Stockfish lists f4 as one of my top 5 moves. Okay. All right. That happens sometimes. I mean, I thought if they took, I can take a number of ways and we can start clearing this open. But again, they're supposed to take my knight down here. They did not. They added another attacker here. Now, earlier, queen to c7 was the only move that took advantage of my mistake. But now it's a mistake for them to do that. Because I can take here. That way, really? Okay, let's try to learn from this. This is my only move that maintains the very little advantage they just gave me. And it says they wouldn't take back. It says they would play knight to g4. And then I would put my knight on d5. Okay, well, even if I had thought that was a good idea, I assumed they would have just taken back with this pawn. I would have had no idea that they would not take back with the pawn. And then I could hop my knight in here. Because again, I thought they would take it. And it says they would. Wow. All right. Yeah, I don't understand that. I did the second best move, but it counted it as a miss. Now, my opponent has a miss here, too, because they, again, were supposed to take this knight. I'm really not sure why that is so important other than opening this diagonal, but they played one of their top moves, which was to drop this bishop back, I assume, to maybe keep my knight from going this way, or maybe to bring the bishop here to point through here. Oh, wow, I'm dull-witted. My pawn was attacking it. Of course, they're going to move the bishop back. And that's probably why I pushed it forward. Wait, why It's their best move to take this knight. Okay, well, I would have done the same thing my opponent did here, which is get the bishop out of danger. Sorry, it took me so long to see that, but again, I haven't seen these games in a few days, and the games themselves took multiple days to play, so it's not like I just played a rapid game and all the moves are fresh in my mind. All right, just like my opponent kept missing knight captures e2, I kept missing knight to d5. That is... Or knight taking d4. Either one of those is what I'm supposed to do now. Or putting a knight back on d1. And it's as if I did that, they would take this knight. But again, they're probably not going to. They haven't done it yet. What I saw, I thought eventually this knight's going to be out of the way and this bishop's going to be here. So I wanted my rook to be here defending my bishop. That explains this move, but it was a miss because it's so great for me to put my knight in there. Yeah, I don't get it, but anyway, that's what I played. We're still very close to even. My opponent's best move is bishop to b4. Now I can't move the knight, and they have lots of pieces pointed at it. My best move is to get my queen out of the pin, because then they're going to take here, and I'm going to take there. Okay, so my blunder was challenging that bishop and trying to force the issue, because my opponent finally saw this. Now maybe they had seen it the whole time, and they were giving me time to see it. If so, you know, good try, PMA68, but I didn't see it. I think the idea here is that's one of the defenders of c3. So when they take on e2, then I've lost a defender of c3. And that's why instead of playing a3, I should have dropped the queen back. So when they took this, I could take back with the knight, and we would have been about even, I guess. But here they took this, and I'm supposed to take back with the queen, or take the bishop with the pawn. I thought if I took back with the queen, then they would take here, and when I took back, they would pick up a whole extra piece, and that's probably why I'm down -3 here. And I guess if I took the bishop with the pawn, then they could take this with their knight, and if I took back, they would pick up an extra piece either way. Okay, I think I get that now, because what I did was this. That makes it worse, because now they can just take here. And of course they did, and I'm not even supposed to take back, but I did, and when they took back, of course, I'm down a piece. So it looked like because I played a3, I ended up going down a piece. So I'm going to go back to right here where we're almost even. My opponent has a very slight edge. Again, Stockfish is having trouble deciding. Earlier, it was really clear on d1, but now it says g5 would be just as good. e3 wouldn't hurt. c1 would be a little worse. But these three squares would all be fine. We'd be very close to even, and depending on which one I chose, they would do a slightly different thing. I think I understand these two. Not sure about g5, but I do understand e3 and d1. They continue to protect this knight, and so if they took on e2, I would take back with the knight, and my queen would be out of the pin. Okay, and they wouldn't take here first because of how many pieces I would have defending there. So wait, what about if I did drop back and they took here, and I took back with the knight? Wouldn't they would be able to pick up an extra pawn, wouldn't they? Maybe not. No, my bishop's guarding that pawn. Okay, wow. Okay, so I think I got this one. Thank you for the game, PMA68. It looks like, we both missed a few things, but nothing significant until right here when I played a3. All right, I had hoped to go through more than just these two games in this video, but this video has gone on long enough. Thank you for spending your time here. I'll see you next time.